Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining the Impact Force session. As you may know, Impact Force sessions are all focused on improving our soft skills and leveling up in our careers. And we have done a couple of sessions in the Impact Force series, and we are also celebrating 1 year completion of Impact Force. And we have so many topics covered under this series, and you can find all these topics covered under the YouTube channel Trailblazing Together. And if you have any suggestions for any sessions, if you're looking for some information, we're happy to host that session. Please feel free to send a message to me about anything that you want to know about or anything that you want to be covered. So we have so many speakers join the sessions before and share expertise, and I'm glad to have Tasha today. Tasha is a marketing champion, and she is 4-time certified Salesforce business analyst, and she is also marketing automation specialist working in Pardot. And she has transitioned into tech space 3 years ago, and she has about 20 plus years of experience in higher ed, customer service, and sales. And she has many vast experiences to add to her skill set. And I'm very glad to host Tasha today. And today's session is going to be about top 10 skills of being an effective BA. And that I'll turn it over to you, Tasha. Please take it over.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. As JB mentioned, my name is Tasha Rucker. I'm happy to be joining you this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're joining us from. So a little bit about me, as JB mentioned before, I am a 4-time Salesforce certified business analyst. Right now, I'm primarily working in higher ed. However, I've made the decision recently to transition into being a full-time independent consultant. I'm also a certified professional Scrum Master, a 2021 marketing champion. Some of my cloud expertise, including Pardot, are Sales Cloud, education data architecture, nonprofit success pack, and I've been dabbling a little bit in health cloud. So it's been good to kind of like spread my wings a bit, gaining new knowledge in the different clouds. Other applications that I use on a regular basis are Conga, Mowgli, which is a text messaging platform, Form Assembly, and Salesforce Labs. My current goal in terms of certification and just my continuous learning, next step is to be a Pardot consultant. So I do have my Pardot specialist certification, but definitely looking to gain that Pardot consultant certification. I am also learning Marketing Cloud, which isn't easy to do when you don't have access to an org. So trying to really volunteer to get more information about, to get more skills, if you would, the technical skills part of learning Marketing Cloud. And I'm also studying to be a platform. I'm studying for the PD1 exam as well. Okay, so just to kick things off with skill set number 1. So what I want you to keep in mind throughout today's presentation is you might know some of these, right? But sometimes we need to be reminded. And if you're newer in the BA space, these are things that you would want to consider in order for you to be successful. So just kind of, just a little tidbit there. Also, one thing that I like to talk about during my presentations is, since we've been in this virtual world, having the ability to pop into different user groups, a lot of us, focus on learning the technical, and the technical is good. Don't get me wrong. If you're learning about a new, like for example, in Pardot, the new email builder or the new landing page builder, for example. Focusing on those, that's great, to keep your skill sets fresh and up to date on the new releases that come out, even in Marketing Cloud or just even in Salesforce. But what I find is that, sometimes we don't really think about sharpening our skill sets from a soft skills perspective. So in this presentation, what I like to talk about and cover are those soft skills to help you be successful. So skill set number one, critical thinking. So real critical thinkers are disciplined in their craft of issue resolution. They really honor work rigor and those routines and habits that yield them to the expected outcomes, focusing on that end goal. They exercise emotional intelligence through self-awareness and self-regulation. So focusing on the end state and what you need to do in order to get there. So that's a good first kind of skill to make sure that you sharpen. Like, do you understand what it takes to get, when you're looking at any one of your projects that you have that are lined up, or if it's a certain request that you have from a marketing department or even from your sales team, what is it going to take for you to get there? And that might sound like it's simple, right? But there's a lot that we would want to take into consideration, because there's like multiple ways of accomplishing something. But what is actually the best way to get there? What is the best way to get there and not creating a ton of technical debt? Not designing short-term solutions, but also thinking about long-term goals. So as you're developing, those are some things that you would want to take into consideration. If you have created within your marketing department a 5-year plan, let's say you have a 5-year plan, anything that you're developing today and in future iterations, you would want to make that consideration to that short term or I would say that long-term goal. So just keep that in mind as you're working through some of your projects. Let's move on to skill set number two, growing your knowledge. So, hey, you're here today, you're learning some new skills in order to be more effective at being a BA or an aspiring business analyst. So create that professional development plan and try to stick to it. And it's easier said than done. Trust me, I have issues with, I blocked off time on my calendar, but I really committed to it? Like, can I close my office door at home and, not answer, a call and, not looking at email and just focus on this 1 hour of growing my skill set? And of course, you can apply this from a technical sense, but then you can also apply it from gaining skills from a soft skill standpoint. And I feel like that's very important. I feel like also in talking with newer folks that are entering into the ecosystem, one of their things, and absolutely this is important, is just focusing on that. Focusing on those technical skills that you need to learn to execute. But it's also is equally important to understand those soft skills that you need to learn as well. So I think that that's applicable to, everyone, people that are very seasoned in their roles. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that some of this might be a reminder. I don't claim to have anything that's, brand new. But this conversation can be about us, returning back to the basics, if you would. So make sure that you create a plan, try to stick to it, avoid any distractions so that, you're successful, and then practice what you've learned. So it's good to read a book, listen to a podcast, listen to a presentation, interact, in a session of some kind. If you were attending Par Dreamin' or any other or connections. If you're going back and if you're reviewing some of those sessions, the next thing is executing on what you learned. How do you practice what you learn? So that's something else to keep in mind. So moving on to skill set number 3, having the right skills. So, I think that this could be a personal preference. This could be a preference to the company that you're working for. Everyone has different tools that they have that they use to design for their projects. Whether that's, a tool, there are several different design tools that are out there that you could utilize. Excuse me. Equally, there are other tools out there for delivery, governance, and road mapping. What tool is going to work best for you? So, there might be, tools like Jira for you to organize your projects. That could be one. Lucid Charts. Lucid Charts is one that I use on a very regular basis when I'm designing out a process. So when I'm capturing those requirements from either my sales team or my marketing team, when I'm asking those questions, I'm collecting my notes. And I feel like, to a chart or some type of flow, so people can visually understand the information that you captured, and you get them to agree on that point. I think that a lot of us are very visual. A lot of the tools that we develop in Marketing Cloud, Pardot, and in Salesforce are visual. I mean, if you look at Flow Builder, for example, or the email builders, for example, they're very visual in design. And so I think that it's important to use those type of tools when you're mapping out your entire process or your project that you plan to deliver, to get everyone on the same page, whether it's getting your sales team, your stakeholders to sign off on what you captured, what you heard, and what you intend to deliver, and also working across your team within your department. So team, this is what we're going to do. This is our process. We're mapping this out. This is how we plan to execute it. So there are a ton of tools that are out there. I really like tools like Monday.com that kind of keep us in track of project planning. And I feel like it's good to keep us on task, to keep us following the schedule that we've put out there. We have a schedule, we have a deadline in order for us to execute this project. How are we making sure that we're keeping in line with those deadlines? So just a little tidbit out there, having the right skill. There are a lot of tools. It's weird saying that. There are a lot of tools out there. I would say find something that you're comfortable with. I like where I can have multiple tools within one platform, as opposed to jumping in, let me jump over in this system. I feel like having one system where I can capture my notes, where I can design, where I can keep links, where I can have a project plan, a project schedule, those time tracking, for example, on your projects, especially if you're a consultant and you're expected to have certain number of billable hours, every week. So just keep those in mind. If you could work within one system, hey, that's what we tell people to do in Salesforce, right? We want to keep everybody in one system. So the tool that you choose, try to keep everything in one system. And, there are some great project management tools that are that you could probably find on the App Exchange and connect to your Salesforce org. I think one of them is called the Agile Accelerator. That is a Salesforce Lab free project management tool that's out there. I've heard some mixed reviews on that one. There are also ones like TaskRay. TaskRay, I've heard some very positive things about that. If you work in the nonprofit space, you get 10 licenses for free. So that might be something that you may look into as well. But TaskRay is another project management system that you could have in Salesforce as well. Okay, moving along to skill set number 4, oral and written communication. Very important to have, right? And I find that something, breaking down oral and written communication skills is important, like active listening skills. Sometimes when our stakeholders ask us a question, and I'm trying to put this in a way that maybe you could understand a little bit more about active listening, but besides just making sure that you're observing, you're capturing all of the requirements, I find that stakeholders often ask questions, and I feel like that there's always a question behind the question that they're asking. And there's nothing wrong with really asking, that's a great question. Why is that a concern? Or why are you mentioning that at this point in time? I think that it covers some additional, it could uncover some additional feedback that your stakeholders could provide for you. Having a way of, when you're in a project and you're about to roll it out, right? Do you have, as marketers, we do drip campaigns for all kind of stuff, right? But what about having a drip campaign for new releases that happen within your org, or something that is going to be impacting your sales team? Letting them know that, hey, this is a new feature, getting them excited, letting them know, first off, hey, you asked for this. One of the stakeholders felt that it was important that our team develop this solution. So we want to let you know that it's coming. We want to let you know that it's coming in advance, being very transparent to your users. That is a part of being effective in your role as a BA as well. So you can leverage those marketing skill sets that you have in using your drip campaigns to prepare your users for a new feature that's coming out, that they'll be able to either utilize, or something that's going to be impacting their sales, especially if it's a marketing campaign that's geared toward generating additional business. We heard you, we're putting this plan together, we plan to execute this, and this is what you can expect. That is a part of communication. So I feel like we use this oral and written communications. We see that in job descriptions, but what does that really mean? And it almost can be like we take it for granted, or we don't find additional bullet points, if we're looking at the slide here, on what oral and written communication is. After each one of your releases, do you have a way of sharing and receiving feedback from your users? I think that that's very important. On the Salesforce BA side of things, when we have certain releases and we started, I'll give you an example of a time where we rolled out some new functionality. I did some training with our users. Specifically, we rolled out text messaging and really showing them what they could do with text messages. So they got the training. They started to, we rolled out we did the training. We made some customizations, rolled out text messaging to our users. But what I found, that it was good for us to get some additional feedback on how they were using the tool. So I thought of we have office hours, Salesforce has office hours, where you can get feedback from users. So what I did was immediately after certain releases, depending on what it was, I felt like this was very important for users to share feedback with us, is that we could host like a weekly, office hour session where they could ask questions. With text messaging, you can do all sorts of things, like creating templates. And, for some folks that, aren't as technically savvy as some, using merge fields. So really helping them to be successful, um, when you have new releases, what they enjoy. Like, I really like using this, and it became like a best practice session in some ways. And then, some other things, practicing empathy, respect, and being responsive are important things as well. Because as you know, it's challenging adopting. Um, some users struggle with adoption. They really do. I remember when winter 2020 came, and for whatever reason, there was a user that really had a tough time with understanding, or didn't really like the Einstein search. I mean, something very simple like that you would think that is beneficial. Somebody really had a tough time with it. So really being able to listen to that user and say, yeah, I definitely understand, but then also kind of shift their thought process and thinking on the positives. So being able to receive that information, and being able to kind of like coach that person through, instead of just saying, oh, well, good luck, it's here. There's nothing I can do about it. But yeah, just having some empathy there for your users. All right, skill set number 5, we're halfway through. Documentation and reporting, an often missed step. And you know what? I don't know if it's just because of the time, we have a schedule that we're following. We have all of these things. And then we feel like documentation just, I feel like, often falls through the cracks. Why did we make certain changes? Within our org itself, are we, when we're creating fields on the Salesforce end of things, are we adding descriptions as far as what the purpose of this field is going to be? Outside of that, documenting your meeting notes. I feel like that's important from a transparency standpoint. Gathering requirements. Are they in a central location where those that are vested in the project have access to it? So, and I mean that in saying stakeholders, I mean that in saying, those people that are on your team. Is everything transparent? Like, where can I find what I need? If somebody's out of the office for a day, that an important meeting took place, are they able to come back into the office and be brought up to speed? Also, training. Is there a place where you could have a repository of some kind to onboard new employees? So I don't just mean new marketing team members or new Salesforce team members. I also mean new employees that come in. Like, are you asked to have a training session specifically for a new person that comes in that's in the sales department? Or have you created training assets that are out there? And there's a repository of information where a new employee can be onboarded relatively quickly, instead of, wow, I'm going to have to allocate time to sit down and train someone. It's not a bad thing if you have to do that. But as you know, we are very pressing and we have deadlines that are out there to follow. So the time that it takes to onboard a new employee might take away from you developing a skill set, or not a skill set, developing a solution for a project that you're currently working on. This is, working smarter, not harder. And sometimes it's as easy as logging into Loom or whatever screen recording platform that you could use and recording a quick 5-minute video on how to accomplish something. I mean, it doesn't even have to be 5 minutes. It could be 2 minutes. I find that if you're able to give things in small chunks to people, and it makes it easier for users to find what they need. And this goes from Salesforce or marketing. Both of these are applicable. If your sales people have the option of sending emails from Pardot, you want to make sure that they're doing it correctly, right? So why not record like a short 2-minute video and say, these are the steps that you would want to do instead of putting them into a long document. Documents are helpful. And what I mean by document, I mean like, a manual. I've created some of those as well. I find that people really do like manuals. They like the step-by-step. And some people don't want to try to figure out, what do I need to, I don't want to read through this whole document. Can you like show me? Because I'm, again, very visual and I want to see how this works, so for certain, have a repository. And again, you could probably keep that in Salesforce, right? There are tools out there like Salesforce Knowledge. If you do have the bandwidth in order to do that, I mean, you could use that. You could use a OneDrive. Talk to your stakeholders and find out what's going to be best. And then reporting is something that, and I don't mean like pulling sales reports out of Salesforce or just marketing related reports. I'm talking about status updates to your stakeholders. Are they aware of the progress of your project that you're working on? Are they aware of like where you are in the process? If you're hung up on something, do they have any knowledge about where things are? And I don't mean like having another meeting. I'm fine with things being sent to me via email because I have, a ton of work to do. And, when I feel like with the whole COVID situation, and a lot of us worked virtually anyways, but there were other employees who started working remotely who weren't before. So, and I felt like there was just a stampede of meetings. Like, I feel like this whole meeting could have been wrapped up in an email, just because, to keep things working. I don't mind meeting with people. I like having personal conversations, especially, being a remote employee. I like to have conversations, but I need to make sure that I'm keeping track on my work as well. So why not, if people are, wondering where are you at with this? Instead of getting an email or having a meeting, be proactive and send out status updates and talk about your project burn rates. Are you on schedule of getting this project out? Are you behind? And why are you behind? And what resources do you need in order to get back on track? These status reports are not only important for those that are external to your project, meaning these are just for my sales team, or executive sponsor, or whoever that person is that that requested, put this project in line. I'm talking about internally as well. You do have a team. If you do, some people don't. A lot of us are solo. That's how I started, as a solo accidental admin. And I learned Pardot the same way. I was the resource, the only person. And when you're the only person, it's kind of challenging to to who do you communicate with? So that opens up another challenge as well. Okay, so moving along to skill set number 6. Oh, it looks like I have, and I apologize, I haven't been monitoring the chat, but I did see my name pop up here. So quick question for Tasha, where do you think tools like Slack fit into documentation and reporting along with tasks that the BA would complete? That's a great question. I use Slack a lot. I feel like Slack is good, for one-off communication. I like the new huddle that you can quickly just have a quick chat with someone. I don't feel like Slack is a good, at least not for me, it's not a good place to store, documents, because it's like a big thread, right? And then a lot of people, they don't necessarily, when they're responding to something, they don't necessarily reply correctly, commenting on something previously. I know that Slack has some applications that you could probably download to use with Slack. But if anybody has like a best practice in using Slack specifically, please feel free to chime in here. From a documentation and reporting standpoint, I don't find that to be a really good tool to store those. I'm trying to think of how that could potentially work. I use Slack a lot, like a lot of us probably belong to a ton of like Slack channels, but I don't necessarily use it for documentation and reporting. For anything, it's just, quick one-off, responding, seeing if I can get an answer, on a question. If I need to share a document, I mean, you can do that. But as far as a repository, I think there are probably some other tools that are out there that might be more useful. So thanks, Mark, for that question. I hope I answered that. And like I said, if anyone has, if anybody knows a good use case to use Slack for documentation and reporting, please chime in. I've just not used Slack for that purpose. Okay, so skill set number 6, analytical thinking and problem solving skills. I mean, it goes without saying that we are in our roles to, tackle issues that come up. But, I think that observation is something that, when we're in our own little world, especially if we're working from home, observation virtually can be a little challenging if you're not staying plugged in. And sometimes, I feel like when I have conversations with people that I listen for certain, words or certain things just make me, I think that this is me personally, just curious as far as when someone, has an issue with something and they're coming to you and asking you, how could you best solve this issue? I feel like that there are a lot of other questions that you can ask to get you to where you could better understand the issue. So let me give you an example of that. So somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I need a new marketing, I need a drip campaign for X, Y, and Z. Okay. Instead of being, quote, an order taker, you want to understand, what do they need this for? Why do they need it? Why is it, something that's brand new? Are you not able to utilize something else that's out there? And it's not just pushing them away. That's not what I'm getting to. I mean, I'm getting to the bottom of why this is a need. Why is this a problem? Why is it that we need to solve this issue? So, that's just another way of problem solving. So problem solving, again, if looking at the slides, detecting patterns, brainstorming, observing, interpreting data, that's really important. Integrating new information, making decisions based off of multiple factors and options available. That is very key and important. I find that, when there is a problem or there's something that arises, there are, in just like in Salesforce, sure, I've not used Marketing Cloud much. Pardot is not really, true in a sense that there's multiple ways of accomplishing an end goal. I'm pretty sure Pardot is like that too. Just can't really come up with something right off top of mind. There's multiple ways of solving a problem, right? But is it the best way? And so I think that when we're approaching our projects when we're approaching our projects or other tasks that we're asked to accomplish, is it the best way? And I think that is a good segue into skill set number 7, which is, having a high level of urgency and high level of accuracy. The best way. It's kind of like the measure twice, cut once concept. Someone also told me as a manager, if you have time to get it wrong, you have time to do it again. And I don't really have time to do stuff repeatedly again, so trying to get it right the first time. But so that's the high level of accuracy, standpoint, and trying to get it exact. But something else that's important is to have a high sense of urgency. If someone comes to you and they say that, you've got a ton of, I don't know everybody's, what everybody, where everyone works in the job that they play, but, most of us have a lot of work to do, right? And it's important to recognize when things are very urgent that you might need to step away from something you're currently doing in order to resolve an issue. So just knowing that this is something that is going to require you to step away is incredibly important. Communicating clearly, effectively, and concisely is very important as well. Leading by example, addressing the naysayers, and providing incentives and rewards. Well, it's not like I'm saying incentive and rewards doesn't mean, hey, you get a gift card if you start using this feature in Salesforce and do a training on it or whatever. That's not what we mean there. So, we know that change management can be very challenging, right? And there are going to be some folks that are not so happy with changes that come out. For me, I could, just knowing the folks that I work with, I know who those folks can potentially be. And especially those that really struggle with change. I like to have one-on-one conversations with them first, just to kind of get them together, get them to have a better understanding is what I mean by getting them together. Having them to understand why this change is happening and the impact that it could have that's positive in their work is important. And then, what I mean by incentive and rewards is, try to give them some quick wins. Quick wins are important. It's good to sprinkle those in, as we're doing work. So that's what I mean by those incentives and rewards. I think that sometimes we might underestimate the work that we do and how it impacts other people, even though we're doing it because someone has brought it to our attention that it might create additional work for someone else, or they might not necessarily buy into it. So it's good to be empathetic. And it's good to say, this is happening, And then, addressing those people that you have an idea that it might not have the most positive effect for. And then if you're able to, provide them with a quick win, making an adjustment of some kind. Obviously, you would want to get approval for that. But that's what I mean by those incentives. So high level of urgency, high level of accuracy, because there's nothing like trying to get, you understand that, hey, there's something's broken, you need to fix it. Okay, you're on high alert, but also get it right the first time and try to be exact with whatever solution that you've uncovered. And good segue into skill set number 8, negotiation. So sometimes, I don't know if I feel like I have this happen, quite a bit when I'm working on a project. I feel like, I've done a good job with preparing and having conversations, but then there is always something that tries to derail my project. Like, how did we get here? And these are things that I think in this order, if you are, if you have good preparation, you've got good documentation out there, your communication skills are really on par with letting everybody know the status, burn rate, etc. And then someone's like, but what about this? And that, but what about this conversation can always redirect you into something that may not be as positive. And here's what I will say that I found that's helpful for me is to go back and really clarify the goals. I mean, because you have them mapped out there. If you've done your due diligence and communication, documenting, having your meeting notes out there, you want to go back and really clarify what those goals are. And I find that when I take it back to clarifying those goals, it kind of gets that person who's quote unquote derailing the project to kind of refocus, redirect. They're refocused on, what the project goals were really about. But, that doesn't always work. Even though, I would say that I've tried, but this, the stakeholder is very adamant about shifting gears and direction. We have to be flexible, right? So what I'd like to do at that point is work towards a win-win outcome to where it's not going to be 100% in either person's favor, but it gets us to where we need to be. And that's where you would reach that agreement phase and execute. So learning those negotiating skills are very key, because otherwise we go back into something that I feel is kind of like an order taker role, when I feel like BAs have excellent consultative skills. I feel like, that's a skill set that you need to have. In fact, that brings us into skill set number 9. Well, skill set number 10 is actually consultative skills, but we'll get there. So skill set number 9, organization skills. And I don't just mean like physical organization. I mean like digital organization, like where, again, this goes back to some of the tools that you're using. Do you have a system that's productive for you to capture requirements, communication, design, etc.? That's digital or physical and digital organization is very important. Planning and time management, what systems are you using for those? So this will help you to be a highly productive BA if you have a plan for how you're organized, how you're organizing your project. And I recently saw this on Twitter, this came from a person in the Salesforce ecosystem. And I laughed at this because I had the same problem initially, that this person had multiple notebooks And sometimes they didn't have a organized way of taking notes. Like they would just grab like I got like a ton of notebooks on my desk. I got like 2 or 3 right now. And if somebody were to tell me something, hey, Tasha, this is a good resource for you to look into. Oh, okay, let me write that down real quick. I'm going to write this down in this is a random notebook. There's no organized way for me to go back and look for this. I would have to go through multiple notebooks in order to find that one resource, so I mean, we definitely have to have a plan of how we're going to organize ourselves. And you might think that, oh, this is so very basic. This is like, one-on-one. That's kind of the point of this presentation, is to bring us back to the basics, because we forget sometimes. We're working. We have priorities. We have a lot of things going on in our world that sometimes we need that reminder. And so going on to the last skill set, which I thought was number 9, but it wasn't. But having those consultative skills as a BA is very important. So access, building relationships with all stakeholders involved in decision making. And I feel like this slide kind of brings us back full circle. Networking with stakeholders to stay current on their business strategy and some of their needs. Being credible, coming into dialogues as a consultant and not as an order taker. I've said that a couple of times throughout the presentation. And it's because I feel like when we're new as into that direction of taking orders, as you grow and you build on your skill set, you have more experience, you need to move out of that and be more consultative. What that means is that you have to come prepared with information, ideas, and then setting expectations and goals. That's what you do as a consultant. Ask questions about business goals, not about training goals. Those are different. Demonstrate your understanding of the business strategy and your interest in connecting learning to that strategy, and analyzing information about the current state and desired state to identify performance improvement opportunities on what your stakeholders are looking for. Providing proactive recommendations that target specific performance gaps and link them to specific business outcomes. And the final one, trust. Cultivating your expertise in your subject area, that adds value to your stakeholders. Position yourself as a resource for your stakeholders, that you can trust them on a variety of different needs. So that kind of takes us to the end of my presentation. I know that we have 10 minutes left. I would like to thank all of you for joining me this morning. And as we talked about the top 10 skills of being an effective BA, I hope that some of this was a reminder for some, maybe new to others, but you took some value out of it. So thank you, everyone. And I guess we'll open it up for questions if there are any.
And thank you, Tasha. This is so wonderful. You blew up my mind. Well, you covered a lot of new things that we always undervalue, just like the documentation or being organized. I remember I start with one notes and then I move on to another notes and I don't know where the other notes went. I should say I'm not so organized with maintaining the notes. And Mark, thanks for the suggestion about the Google Keep and how you can sync up with the Google Docs. This is so insightful, Tasha. Now we will open up for any questions. Anybody has any questions, or you want to share anything that worked out for you, any tools that you want to share? It's all open floor.
Yes, absolutely, everyone. Please feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions. And thanks everybody for the feedback in the chat.
Yeah, we got so many great feedback, positive comments, Tasha. Thank you once again.
have a question, Tasha. So I know you mentioned that you have started doing independent contracting. How do
Mhm.
you feel as like a business analyst has changed from like being like an internal admin to consulting? Like, or is it about the same?
That's a very good question. There are some similarities, but for one thing, I have to keep myself something that I have to keep in top of mind as a consultant. You position yourself as the expert. You know, and when I think about that, I have to go back and say, I probably did that when I was a BA or an administrator in some kind of way. But being a consultant, you're a voice of authority, a voice of when our clients come to us and they ask us questions, they're asking because they're expecting you to be the expert. So that's a little bit of change and shift. So I talked, in the presentation today about being an order taker, and I felt like, in my role, my earlier tenure as an admin or a BA, that's exactly what I was. People just told me, hey, we need this, you go out and do it. That was my job. But with and I felt like there were minimal number of questions that I would ask. Someone say, especially when I was brand new, like my first 6 months to a year, I was just like, okay, somebody needs this, I'm going to go and do it. But I feel like being a consultant is, okay, that's great. Tell me, why do you think you need that? Because what they're asking for as a user may not be the best thing to do within an org. That could be in Salesforce, Pardot, or Marketing Cloud. I feel that that's something that I stand by, that you could probably apply that to any environment. That when they say that they need it, you probably need to ask some questions as far as why they need it. And that level of being able to discover, ask questions, find out more details, that's what you need as far as being a consultant.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question, Jackie.
And Tasha, I remember you mentioned you're preparing for the PD1 Set. So we do have a session on how to prepare for the PD1 Set coming up on December 4th by Janet Elliott. I have attended her session before, and I really liked her perspective of putting out the things. It's all about motivation, mastery, and few other guiding posts that are required to prepare for the certification. And I have shared the link in the chat window. So anybody who is preparing for that cert, make sure to attend that session.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like, I've been trying to learn more about Apex, and I tell you, I feel like it's new for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And getting my mind wrapped around it is something that's challenging. So anytime there's a resource on the PD1 exam or learning more about Apex, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and I think we have covered all the questions. I see one new question by Sneha. Any specific points or suggestions for new BAs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Like, what would I give advice for someone that is brand new? I would definitely say focus on some of the skills that we talked about today, prioritize them, and work on them. I feel like the organization piece, documenting piece was something that is a good first habit to have. I feel like we need more documentation, good documentation at that. So having that as a good habit, having your systems or tools together to capture requirements, design ideas, communicating with your stakeholders, communicating within your team is also important. And don't be afraid to be that person to be the organizer of things, the facilitator. Really try and put yourself in that standpoint or in that mindset that you're the facilitator of things, right? Don't be afraid to do that. I see that there's another question. Are there any SOPs or standard operating procedures for a typical BA role? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that to be a fact. Excuse me, one of the resources that I kind of lean to as far as I don't want to say technical, but some of the things that I kind of lean on as an authority of if I needed to have a way of doing something, for example. I know that there are some BA resources. Tony Martin, some of you may or may not know Tony Martin. She's a Salesforce MVP. I can never remember her website. I should always come. I think it's the Systems to Success. She has a lot of great resources on her website about BAs specifically. Yes, Systems to Success. Thank you. For putting that out there. But as far as a SOP, I'm not aware of any. I think that there are different ways that we operate, that it's hard to come up with an SOP for being a BA. I think that, depending on where you work, that might be different. But if you're looking for some guidance on best practice, there are some places where you could probably pick up some information. And I find that I go to Tony's site, the Systems to Success website. And I think she recently, it's either this week or it's next week. I've been so busy working on projects, I wasn't able to attend, but she does have a summit. Oh, so her summit ended yesterday. Okay, yeah. Got it.
That happens every year. And if somebody registers for the VIP pass or something, they will have access to the recordings. If not, the recordings will be available 1 week past the summit, I believe.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
And also there is some newsletter. I get some emails regularly from Tony. If one can register on her website, or I don't know where I registered, you will continue to receive emails from her with all her key insights and some useful resources and links. I can share that if I find that link.
Oh, absolutely. And it looks like Clark put in, as for use case with Slack, someone was asking earlier, Lucid Charts integrates with Slack. Yeah, and Monday.com also integrates with Slack as well. I just have never used the integration of yet. So thanks, Clark, for providing that feedback. Someone also posted out there, the purposefularchitect.com. That kind of reminds me of what I learned at Dreamforce about architect.salesforce.com has some excellent resources on design, delivery, governance, and road mapping. So I'm going to plug this into the chat as well. I find these resources to be very helpful for me also, because this gets a way of, design, data integration, migrating changes, building forms, record triggered automation. This isn't just something that you use for Salesforce. You can translate this into a Pardot or a marketing cloud. I just find that this is a good way of kind of like of setting yourselves up for success. So I learned about architect.salesforce.com during the architect sessions at Dreamforce this past September. So check that site out. It's got some pretty good resources. And something else that came out of Dreamforce as well is that you can now, with Lucid Charts, you can use Salesforce objects within Lucid Charts, and so within your design concept. So keep that in mind. So just realize that we came up on the hour. So I want to respect everyone's time here. And JB, I'll turn it over to you to close things out for today.
An awesome session, Tasha, and thank you for sharing all the additional resources as well. This is very helpful, and this recording will be uploaded to the same YouTube channel, Trailblazing Together, along with other previous session recordings. You can find everything in there. And I thank everyone for joining today. And if you have any suggestions for our upcoming sessions, please feel free to reach out to me and send an email or connect with me on LinkedIn for the suggestions. We will try our best to include those sessions in the upcoming meetings. And thank you once again, and hope to see you again in the next session. Have a good one. Bye.